Alright guys, welcome back to the T-38 build. So this week I got the ducting made. So I made a couple of cardboard templates. I think I might have shown that in my last video. Anyways, I made a foam plug and thankfully it worked for both sides. So I got all of our parts made. These are mine. I already got Andy's trimmed out and everything. So it fit really well. I didn't have the airplane with me when I made the plug. Usually you do that with the plug and make sure it fits and everything, but I just kind of like went for it and hope for the best. And it fits pretty well. So let me get these things into position. So the way you fit these in here is, first I had to cut away this bulkhead here a little bit, but you insert one and slide it forward, and then you put the other one in here and slide it to its location, and then you pull this one back. The reason you do that is because there's not enough room to have one installed and then install this one. So when you go to glue these in, you gotta get them into position first and then apply the glue. So anyways, but they fit pretty sweet, as you can see. And I had to do a little bit of trimming in this area, top and bottom, and then right in here on both sides there's that balsa wood stringer that runs on both sides. I kind of had to grind that off a little bit, but overall it fits pretty well. And just got to take some measurements, make sure everything's centered, and then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this section right here to the splitter plate. These will get glued together back here. I'll do some glue around this bulkhead. I'm pretty much going to glue it anywhere it's close to the body. So like these little spots, I'll probably put some epoxy in there. I want to tie these into the structure as much as possible. So once I have my wing mounts in, those are going to be close, and I'll probably do something to kind of attach them. And that's to help the structure of the airplane and also to help the structure of the ducting. So this is just one layer of glass. So I laid these up. I painted the plug. So what you do is you release the plug once it's made, and then you spray paint it, and then you do the layup over that. And then when you pull it off, the paint sticks to the fiberglass, and you end up with a painted surface. So that's white paint, and yeah, works pretty well. So I have an adapter piece that I made. I laid up on a table a single sheet of fiberglass here with a stacked up layer of tape down the center of it, and I made a big sheet of this tube material. Basically, this is flat stock that's just rolled into a tube right now. So anyways, so I laid that up on a table, and then you just trim it to size. And this is Andy's right here. But so what you end up with is this adapter here, and it's got a lip in it, so that sticks to the fan and won't allow it to slide back anymore. So like I discussed previously, and I'll show you guys this later in more detail, but basically you're gonna put the fan in, slide it back, slide this down, slide it up and over the ducts, and then slide your fan into this, and that'll keep it captive between the two. So should work out pretty good. Anyway, so all I did was I just trimmed it to size, and then I overlapped it and scuffed both sides and just super glued it. So quick and dirty, but it works. It's much easier than making a plug and making a tube off of a plug. So anyways, so that's where I'm at. I got Andy's stuff all fitted up, so now I'm just working on mine, making sure everything's fitting properly. Then I'll probably glue them in tonight, and that'll be it for tonight, because in the morning I'm going racing. So I've been working on my car all day basically, but I wanted to get a little bit done, and I just finished these up yesterday, so I kind of wanted to make sure they fit and see how they looked and everything else. But pretty happy with them, honestly. Pretty stoked on it. I'll get back to you once I start gluing stuff in here. All right guys, welcome back to the T-38 build. We had a quick video clip before this from last week, but haven't done much since then. So anyways, just want to show you guys where I'm at. I am getting ready to install these ducts, but before I did, I wanted to set up my ESC for cooling first. So a couple reasons. Normally in the past we would put the ESCs in the tailpipe or something to keep them cool. That works just fine. Problem is you end up with longer power leads, and so trying to both reduce the length of the power leads off the ESC and reduce weight of extra wires, I'm putting it in the inlet. You can see it just barely sticking past the surface there, which should work just fine. And this puts it really close to the battery area, so the inlet will be right about here, and the batteries should be just for the inlets. So I had the ESC in the inlet duct on the F18 and it worked great, so not worried at all. And these are 120 amp ESCs and we're only pulling like 100 amps, so these don't need a whole lot of cooling just because we're not pushing them really hard. But anyways, I made a little hole there with clearance for these little things. I might do like some little plywood mounts and then just run some screws in there. I usually just use hot glue or something, which works, but it's just kind of hokey, and it makes it hard to remove if you do have to remove it. The only downside to that would be I have a couple of white ep-120s that came out of my t-38, the big one, and I have those as backups. Those are a completely different shape than these, so if I do plywood mounts and stuff, then I couldn't just swap one of those in here. I could just pop this off if it were hot glued in, and I might still just do a little hot glue spot weld, if you'll call it, on each little mount lug here, and that should hold it in place. So I'll probably end up doing that, but for now I'll probably just leave it off and I'll install that later. But yeah, now the ducts have sat for a week or so, they've fully cured and they're nice and stiff now, so not worried about that at all. I did cut out this wall here so the ESC has room. This wall really isn't super needed for structure, wasn't doing a whole lot, so not really worried about it. A lot of the structure from this forward fuselage area is going to come actually from the ducts being glued in up here and then glued into the lip, and then that being glued to this, and then I'm going to glue into this bulkhead right here and then into this bulkhead up here. So anyways, I think I'm ready to glue these in, so I'm going to glue them in and then move on to my wing saddle area, which is going to be an 1/8 inch balsa piece that spans across the whole wing area and then kind of ties in forward and rear of that for some extra stiffness. And then we'll have some plywood mounts that go on there. So, and I still haven't decided on how I'm going to do the fan mount. I have a couple of ideas on how to keep it light, but we'll see. So anyways, let's take a good look over everything and make sure that we are in fact ready to glue these in. Make sure that's not going to keep me from getting anything else done that needs to get done. And then once I've figured that out, then I'll go ahead and glue these in. Probably use 5-minute epoxy where it glues the fuselage and the bulkhead back here. And I'll also glue them together right here and where the walls meet up. So anywho, let's keep on trucking. Alright, so I got the ducting glued in, and I got it glued in around this bulkhead, up in these areas here along those balsa wood stringers, then a couple of spots right here and right there, and then again it's epoxied in right here. So I have my adapter piece on while this is curing. This is a really tight fit, so I just want to make sure that it's going to still fit after this cures. So anyways, I'm going to leave this on here for now, but as you can see, the ducting is all in, and I don't know, this might be the best ducting I've done. It's design wise, it looks really good, so I think these are going to be super efficient and probably pretty fast. So you can see how it's got a nice gentle convergence where the two walls come together, and I also went super high radius on those corners along here, because a sharp corner will cause turbulence, and there'll be like little turbulent wakes along those sharp edges, and it also makes it really hard to lay up. So with a rounder edge, it causes less turbulence along those inner walls. You do end up with a little hole top and bottom, but I mean, that's not a huge deal. If anything, that will help fill in that void. It'll pull air through here. It'll help fill in some of that void as the air comes through. So anyways, should be really quiet and super efficient. So that's what I'm hoping for. But anyways, this thing's a monster, guys. It's freaking huge. And I just weighed it. With the ducts, it's 1 pound and 14 ounces, so call it 2 pounds. So I've opened up this a little bit. I don't want to open it up too big. I want to keep as much structure here as I can. So right now it's just kind of a big oval. Should be about big enough to get the tube in and out. Anyways, now I'm going to work on getting these balsa pieces made here. I have a template that I made off the drawings a while ago. I just got to find it. So I'm going to get those in, and then I got to cut out the center of that other bulkhead in there so that way it'll be all the way through. And then I got to map out where my elevator spar goes. And then I already have the location for the vertical. I actually marked this from the template, so that's where the vertical spar goes. Once all this epoxy cures, I'm going to start on the inlets as well. So I'm kind of just like working my way back. So get the inlets done, and then I got to get my fan mounts done. I got to get these wing reinforcement pieces in. Then I can do the wing mounts, and then I'll move on to my elevator setup. So hoping that this weekend I can get the fuselage essentially done, and then I'll turn my attention to the wings and tails. So anyways, it's moving. It's looking good. Definitely like these ducts. I think they're going to work out really well. So pretty sweet. All right, so what I've got here is 1/8 inch balsa, 2 inches by 27 inches. So I had originally made a template because I was gonna do some dumb things on the ends that isn't gonna help anything. And after looking at it, I also didn't have enough meat there, so I went taller. It was less than 2 inches, so, and it was shorter, so now it goes out farther past the ends here, so to help strengthen up this area here. So anyways, it's not glued in yet, obviously. So this is for Andy's sake, but for anyone else, obviously it isn't going to matter. I did have to slightly raise up this notch that's in this bulkhead, and the same with this one, about, I don't know, 1/4 inch or so, maybe a little bit more. So raise those up, and so basically when it glues in, it's going to attach to this 1/2 inch 6mm on that side and on this side, so it'll kind of tie into those. I believe I'm going to use foam safe CA on this. I considered using epoxy, but I don't think that's going to really gain me much, and it's heavier and it's harder to do. So I think the way I'm going to do this is, and the way you get this in here is you actually, let's see if I can even get it out now. Oh, can't move it. Anyways, you have to slide it into this side first and then push it in this way. So when I go in to glue it, that's going to be challenging, but I think I can just spread it apart and zigzag some glue in there, some foam safe, and kick it off. So, and then I think once it's all in, then I'll come in and maybe use some epoxy to tie it into a couple of spots. I'll probably just save that for when I glue in the wing mounts, which I'll show you here in just a second. Okay, so once this balsa, you can see the outline of the balsa inside there now. Once this is glued in, I'm going to trim off this. That way this is still flush with this foam. Basically, this is the mount for the wing, and the spars. So there's a set of these for the wing as well, and they'll glue it in between the spars. So basically this is going to be glued in. I need to measure it, but anyways, it's somewhere around here. But I'm going to make some little bulkheads to tie this into the balsa wood. And then on top of that, since like I was mentioning earlier, I was going to hope to tie these into the inlets, so I might make a little piece to kind of glue this to the inlet to help take some of the load. So anyways, once this is done, you'll see that it's going to work just fine. That's the base for the wing mount. So, and basically, so here's the whole stack of the parts that I made. These are all the fuselage parts. These are the wing ones. And I might have showed this on my previous videos, but anyways, these are gonna, I mean, obviously not all of them. One of them is gonna glue in between both spars like this, and then there'll be probably a 1/4 inch nylon bolts on each corner. Four bolts total, and that's gonna bolt the wing on. I might do something in the back because this belly pan's huge, so might have like a couple of bolts back here, or maybe it'll slide in, and this will be like a tongue and groove kind of a thing, and then this will be 1 or 2 little bolts back here. Anyways, we'll see. Haven't gotten there yet. That's the kind of stuff that I don't really design until I get there. So, because that stuff really isn't a huge issue to me, and I don't feel like spending a bunch of time designing that for 1 or 2 models. So when I get to that point, I'll deal with it. But there's no concern. There's nothing that's keeping me from designing this and having it get in the way of something else at that point. So that's how I save a little bit of time here and there, by just waiting and just winging it when I get there. So anyways, let me get these balsa rails glued in here, and then we'll move on from there. I'll probably wait on these till I have the wing done, and then I'll set these up. I'm not going to glue these in now until the wing's all good to go, and then I can make these fit really nice and flush to the ones in the wing. So I will save those for later, but that's how it's going to work. And then I have a couple of ideas for the fan mount. I'm actually thinking of, I think I have some 1-inch blue foam. I'm thinking about making some rails that just kind of go across from here to here with blue foam, and then just gluing on a couple of little plywood pads for the fan to screw to. So those would kind of like, those rails would be super light and just kind of tie these bulkheads together. I don't know, we'll see. I could also do the same thing, but run it horizontally and run it this way, which would probably be more helpful strength-wise. Anyways, again, that's another one of those things where it's a fan mount. It's not a huge deal. I'll figure it out when I get there. So gotta get these balsa things in. I gotta get these inlets finished up, and then we'll move on to all that junk. So yes, sir. All right, so I got this glued in. So this was kind of a pain, but I think I figured out a better way to do it. So this one's just sitting here for right now. So pretend this isn't in here. So basically you come in with the glue, and you're gonna drizzle this section here, just kind of zigzag it, and then let's see, I want to do this, and then zigzag the foam to right here, and then on the balsa wood side, obviously when this isn't in here, you're going to zigzag from here forward, because way up in there is really hard to get to with the bottle. So basically you're going to, let's see if I can slide this one out. So you're going to zigzag in there with the glue, and then in this area, and then it is going to kind of push some glue out of the way. There's really no other way to do it. And then you're going to slide this in past this point, get it in there, and then I actually, on this other one, I kind of like I was showing earlier, kind of spread the foam and the wood apart, and got a little more glue in there, and then pretty much just going to hold it apart, spray with some kicker really quick, and then hold it in place and try and kind of hold that curve while it's curing. And then thankfully foam safe takes a while to cure, so then come to the front side, throw some kicker in there, and then do the same thing, hold it down in that curve while it cures. So kind of a pain. There's really no other way to do it, and I didn't want to glue these on the side pieces before I built it, because I wanted to be able to get this curve really nice. So with the wood glued in there flat, it would have been much harder to get it to curve. So, and you know what, it might work. It might be easier just to do it that way, just to glue the wood on to the foam first before you even build it. But I'm at where I'm at now, so this is all I got to work with. So I'm gonna make it work. And yes, I'm wearing Crocs today and pajama pants. What do you want from me, people? It's cold. Anyways, let's get this glued in. All right, so I decided to go with plywood. So I mean, these are like this isn't light ply, but it's not like good quality birch. It's like somewhere in the middle, so it's not too heavy. Right now they're just test fit in here. They're just sitting there. So I made a slot in this bulkhead because I decided, you know what, on these wing mounts I can make a little ply bulkhead that kind of goes from here to up here, and I can tie the wing mount into the fan rail, which is helpful. And then I'll make a little bulkhead on the front side that goes from the balsa wood to the wing mount to the duct. So kind of spreads some of the load out, so that way it's not trying to just snap these off with this balsa right here. So anyways, I think that's going to work. I'm going to probably glue them in with super glue and then run a little fillet of epoxy around the outside, and then that'll be it for the fan mounts. Pretty easy. So just 4 screws and that's that. So this was a major failure. So this broke right here. Had it all glued in, and I was sliding this wood in, and I was just getting into position, and it got stuck. It got stuck back here. It started to cure, and it snapped off. So it's not perfect by any means, but it's gonna work. So like I said, I'm gonna tie these in. I'm still seeing if I have to do any other reinforcements. Like I said, this is the kind of stuff that I just design as I go. So I mean, granted, it would have been better to have this balsa wood go down and meet this plywood and stuff like that. This is all stuff that you learn a little something each time, and then, like, why didn't I just make these bulkheads come all the way to here? Not that it's a huge difference. I can just glue some foam on there. It's not going to be any different because I'm going to have a plywood piece there anyways. But just little stuff like that. Obviously, if I'd spent a bunch of time designing this, then this would be a lot better. But this is a one-off airplane, basically 2-off airplane. So I'm not like, I don't get crazy with stuff like that. It's just I build as I go. That's how I can build things so quickly, is that I'm not designing or building for a large production run or so that everybody can build one kind of a deal. So I'm just sharing this with you guys so that if you decide you want to scratch build something, you could maybe take some of my ideas, improve upon them, see what works, what doesn't work, things of that nature. And this is also a bit of a living build log for this airplane to help Andy build his. So that's where we're at. The fan looks pretty small in there now, doesn't it? It's a 5-inch fan. It's a big old model. Huge. 105 inches, man. It's crazy. Anyways, so let me get these fan mounts glued in, and then that'll be it for the fan setup. And I'll probably move on to the inlets to get that over with, because that's not going to be fun. So anyways, let's keep on cruising. All right, so I got those glued in. I got a little fillet of 30-minute epoxy around everywhere. Did some on here too, a little bit, had some extra. Okay, so I originally only did 1/2-inch foam down here because the whole lower fuselage just has a real mild radius on it, but it obviously transitions to pretty curved up here, so it needs to get sanded right here, and this isn't enough. So I have some 1-inch stock left over from before, and I'm going to put a couple little short strips, not to be real long, because like I said, it's still pretty sharp back here, and it starts to transition around this area. So I'm going to add a little bit of foam in, and then I'm going to start making my pieces to go here. And again, I don't know if you remember from before, but I have to do it in 2 pieces because of the curve. So basically, well, might be able to get away with 1. No, I don't think so, because it does need to kind of curve back in. So I'm going to do 1 to about right here, and then a forward piece out to here. So might be easier that way anyways. All right, so I'm going to get these little corners glued up in here, and we'll proceed on. Looking good though. I like those mounts. They're actually pretty strong, all things considered. Not super heavy. It's just a 1/8 inch, so it's strong enough, but not overkill. So, and again, I'm stoked because I'm going to be able to tie in my wing mounts to there, and everything should be getting stronger now. So, I know Kevin Cox had asked a question on Facebook about plywood formers and stuff, and really there isn't going to be too many plywood parts aside from nose gear mount, fan rails, wing mounts, and then the elevator spar, which I might have to beef up this area back here. Once I get the vertical tail spar glued in, I'm gonna see how strong the aft fuselage is, and I might have to add some balsa or some little plywood pieces. We'll see. Anyways, let's stay focused here. Let's get back to the inlets. All right, so I've quickly, I just added a 1/2 inch piece down here. I didn't really need a whole lot. And then I put a little block right here to support the skin on the inlet. Also keeps the inlet from wanting to collapse too, a little bit. Anyways, you can see I've increased the radius from the front to the back. So the cool part is, if you look at this, everything's gonna be totally sweet. So again, this is the only issue right here, like I said earlier, which is it's gonna end up having to be, I could honestly probably do it in one piece and just kind of form it like that to make it bend a little bit. I just don't want it too straight, because then that'll look, I don't know, they're supposed to be kind of curved like that, but again, we have enlarged them, so you can't have everything. We'll see. I might try it on one piece and see how it goes. But anyways, and then once the inlet's done and I kind of carve the lip, this will transition from the inlet to the splitter here will get kind of filled with spackle and smoothed out real nice. Then I'll probably round off this side of the splitters so the air doesn't cause turbulence. This doesn't cause turbulence as the air hits it. So anyways, and the lower section, you see it kind of goes below the splitter a little bit. That's how it is on the real one. So this is more scale. It's more exaggerated like that. But I didn't want to. We'll see how it goes. I might get this on, then decide this is too big and kind of go back a little bit on that. But anyways, that's all kind of just like artsy fartsy stuff to make it look right once it's all kind of assembled. So anyways, now you can see that radius there anyways, and shouldn't be too hard to form a piece that fits that. So I'll get to work on that. Might take some heat because it's fairly tight radius. So anyways, I'll start playing around with that. Should be interesting. All right, so working on this inlet, I think I can do it one piece. Pro tip, if you crack it while you're bending it, you can put a piece, instead of trying to glue it right away, which will make a hard spot and keep you from being able to continue to bend it, just put a piece of tape over the crack for now and continue bending, and then once you glue it on, you can go back and put a little glue in the crack. So anyways, I'm thinking the best way to do this is to actually glue it to this surface first, and part of the back edge here, glue it down, and then slowly work it around here, and also gluing it to the front at the same time. This is one of those things that's hard to explain. You just got to keep trying. I can't reiterate enough how important it is to find the correct side to bend it on. So I did all this by hand, no heat or anything, and it's pretty good. If I were to try to go the other way, it would bend sort of good, but not that good. And definitely you can't go across that direction. There is a grain, and on these sheets, it's with the Depron writing, happens to be the grain. And you're gonna wanna bend it on I think this is the more slightly porous side. Anyways, use some material, experiment, figure out which side it is, and then make note for all your pieces. Anywho, so I'm thinking that once I glue it to the top section, I can just kind of like work it around, and then when I get to the last little bit here, I'll trim this line here and then curve it and glue it up into this section right here. So anyways, this is real artsy. There's no real good explanation how to do this. You just got to keep trying it. It's not that difficult, and if you mess it up, you probably have a bunch of material to continue trying, but it's not that hard. It just takes some experimenting to figure out. So anyways, I'm gonna try this. Worst case, I cut it off and start over again. So see how it goes. Okay, so I have this top side glued to about right here, and I glued the inlet to about, I sprayed kicker around here on the fuselage part first, and I just ran a little bead around the piece here, stuck it down, worked this down, and then when I got that done, then I came and just put the needle of the glue in here and just kind of ran a little bead around there. So now I have to final trim all of this stuff to get it to fit in there. So, but so far working pretty good, not terrible. So let me work on this, and it's gonna look pretty good once I kind of carve all this in and round up that lip a little bit. It's gonna look pretty sweet. Again, not scale size, a little enlarged, but I don't think it'll look too bad. Okay, so I've glued this back edge down, and now you can kind of see why I kind of needed it to be in two pieces, but I'm thinking if I actually glue the inlet to the skin up here first, and then I can wrap this around in here and tuck it in. Now there is going to be spackle involved with making this look good, so this is to get close. Spackle will take care of all the little stuff that isn't perfect. So you could drive yourself crazy in trying to make this perfect, but it's just never going to happen. So accept defeat and use spackle. So anyways, I'm gonna get this glued on, and I think I can pull this around and kind of glue it in there. So anyways, I wish I had Bentley here. You could film while I'm doing this, but you're just gonna have to wait. All right, so that actually went fairly well. So I was able to get that curve in there, and it's not bad. Once I sand it and trim up the forward edge here, it's gonna look really good, I think. So it looks big right there, but when you back up, it's still bigger than the scale, but it's not terrible. So it's actually, there's I don't want to say a right way. There's a right way to do things wrong. So it's wrong because it's too big for scale, but if you keep the shape right and you proportion it properly, it won't look terrible. It won't look perfect, but it won't look terrible. So let me get this, I'm excited now. Let me get this thing carved up a little bit, shaped out, kind of blended, and then we'll flip it over and take a good look at it. But I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, that looks pretty sweet. All right, so there you go. That's not too bad. I mean, if you saw it with the canopy on it and stuff, it would look a little more proportionate. Anyway, it's proportional, but it's not bad, honestly. I think once you see the airplane completed and finished, those inlets won't bother you at all. If this were a USAF marking airplane with a star and bar on it, you probably wouldn't even notice. It would take a keen T-38 lover's eye to know that it's oversized. It's definitely bigger than scale, but it's not offensive looking. I'll put it that way. Looks pretty good though. Look at them curves, boy. Ooh-wee. It is going to have a pretty sharp lip, but having the inlet area that it has, I'm not concerned with it. So it might make a little noise at real slow speeds, but once it's moving, it's going to clean up real nice. It's about an 1/8 inch radius, so it's pretty small, but again, I got plenty of inlet area, so yeah, like that looks pretty good. I'm a fan. I think it turned out well. Now I just got to do the other side and hope it matches. Alright, so I think that wraps it up for this video. I got both sides done. Looks pretty good. I think I'm gonna run like a small bead of epoxy and filler around this just to give it kind of a radius and to stiffen it up a little bit. But I also kind of like sanded this curve into it a little bit to give the illusion of being the proper shape. Let's see. I also kind of sanded down into this just to give it some of that look as well. But yeah, turned out pretty good. So that's all done now. There's going to be some fine tuning with filler, obviously, to make these look really good, but overall pretty happy with it. Got these in. Those are actually pretty strong, honestly. So anyways, I just weighed it. It's 2 pounds and 2 ounces now with the wood and the mounts and the rest of the inlets. So I added a few ounces to it, but no big deal. But it is looking good. On to the next dilemma, which is the back end for the tails, and then I'll probably do the nose gear last. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And this thing is just so light, it's ridiculous. So anyways, you can see some of the curves, and now you kind of understand why I really don't want to cover this thing in film. There's so many little corners and curves and stuff. It would have been a nightmare to do on foam. Balsa, no big deal. Foam, iron-on film with these kinds of curves and intersections, not fun. So paint it is, and honestly it shouldn't be too terrible. So a little bit of spackle work, some water-based polyurethane, and then paint. So not gonna get too carried away because I don't want to add too much weight. But anyways, hope you guys like this video, and the next one we'll start on the tails and maybe even start on some of the wing stuff too. Gotta get those sheeted and all that goodness. So anyways, hope you guys liked it, and we'll see you in the next one.